I'm 78 years old, and the men who made my heart race in my youth are the reason I now crave quiet company more than charm. I spent decades mistaking flirting for love, and I paid for it with silence. I'm sitting by the window of my small apartment in Ohio, watching a pigeon hop along the railing. The radiator clicks, the kettle hums. It's a simple life now, peaceful mostly, but quiet has a way of making memories loud. People ask me why older women like me don't care about flirtation anymore, why we want presence, why we want stillness. I smile, but inside I remember everything. When I was young, I believed love was supposed to feel like fireworks, not the quiet kind, the loud, dizzy, make you forget your own name kind. I was 19 in 1966. My hair was thick and chestnut brown, and I wore it in a high ponytail because I'd seen Brigitte Bardot do it in a magazine. I worked at a record store on Main Street, where the smell of vinyl and dust mixed with cheap cologne. That's where I met men like Eddie. Eddie had a crooked smile and a laugh that made people turn their heads. He used words like doll and beautiful, as if they were punctuation. He winked. He leaned in close. He made me feel seen, or at least chosen. When Eddie talked to me, I felt like the only girl in the world. But he never asked me what I liked to read. He never noticed when I cut my hair shorter. He didn't remember that my mother hated roses because they reminded her of funerals. Still, I thought he was love, because my heart beat fast around him, because I laughed, because he made me feel young, even when I already was. There was another boy then too, Michael. He worked at the hardware store across the street. He used to come into my shop every Thursday afternoon pretending to browse just to see me. Michael didn't flirt, not really. He asked me how my day was. He remembered my favorite song. He once brought me a small wooden bird he carved because I told him I liked sparrows. I remember thinking he was boring, too calm, too serious, too safe. Eddie took me dancing. Michael walked me home. Guess which one I chose? At the time it felt obvious. I wanted excitement. I wanted passion. I wanted stories I could tell my friends. I didn't know I was turning away from something quieter and far more real. I married Eddie when I was 22. We had a wedding full of laughter and champagne and a band that played too loudly. I wore a tight lace dress and red lipstick. Eddie whispered jokes into my ear during the ceremony. People said we were electric together. They were right. Electric burns fast. Our apartment always had music playing. We had friends over every weekend. Eddie told stories. He flirted with waitresses. He flirted with my friends. At first I thought it was charming. Then it became tiring. Then it became painful. When I tried to talk to him about how lonely I felt even when he was in the room, he kissed my forehead and said, "You're too sensitive, sweetheart." I told myself love wasn't supposed to be easy. I told myself drama meant depth. By 30, I had a son, Daniel, a quiet little boy with big eyes and a habit of holding onto my skirt when strangers came over. Eddie was wonderful with him when he was home, but Eddie was often not home. I remember one night in 1985, Daniel was sick, feverish, crying. I was sitting on the bathroom floor with him, holding a cold cloth against his forehead. I called Eddie at a bar. He said he'd be home soon. Soon came 3 hours later. I was still on the floor. Daniel had finally fallen asleep in my arms. Eddie kissed me, said I looked tired, and went to bed. That was the night something inside me shifted, not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly. Years later, after the divorce, I ran into Michael at a grocery store. He was buying apples. I recognized him immediately. He recognized me too. We stood there between the produce shelves, older, heavier, quieter. He asked me how I was, and for the first time in my life, I told the truth. We sat in his car afterward, just talking. No flirting, no performance, just presence, and it felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, like a language I had never learned. Time is sneaky. It doesn't announce itself. It just passes. Daniel grew up, moved out, started a family of his own. Eddie drifted through relationships like a tourist, postcards, no roots. Michael married, lost his wife to cancer, moved away, and I kept choosing men who made me laugh but never made me feel safe. Men who were exciting, men who were charming, men who disappeared when things got hard. By my 60s, the flirting stopped feeling flattering. It started feeling hollow. A man once told me I had beautiful eyes. I wanted to ask him if he knew my middle name. Another one called me stunning over dinner. I wanted to ask if he could sit with me in silence. When my knees started to ache in the winter, I didn't need compliments. I needed help carrying groceries. When I had my surgery at 72, I didn't want flowers. I wanted someone to stay, just stay. I remember waking up in that hospital room, the beep of machines, the smell of disinfectant. The nurse asked if someone was coming. I said, maybe. No one came. That's when I finally understood. Flirting never held my hand at 3 a.m. Charm never made me soup. Excitement never remembered my fears. And beauty never listened. I thought love was supposed to be loud. But love, real love, is quiet. It sits beside you. It asks. It waits. It notices. Now at 78, I don't want to impress anyone. I don't want fireworks. I want a chair beside mine. I want someone who remembers how I take my tea. I want someone who notices when I'm tired and doesn't ask why. I want someone who can sit in a room with me and not feel the need to fill every silence. That's what emotional presence is. It's not grand gestures. It's not smooth words. It's not charm. It's consistency. It's gentleness. It's showing up when nothing exciting is happening. I once thought being wanted was the same as being loved. It isn't. Being wanted is loud. Being loved is steady. And steady is what lasts. If I could speak to the girl I was in 1966, I wouldn't warn her about heartbreak. I would warn her about emptiness, about confusing attention with connection, about how loneliness can exist even in a crowded room. I would tell her to look for the man who listens, not the one who dazzles, because at the end of life, it's not the sparks you miss, it's the warmth. If you're still chasing excitement, pause. Ask yourself who would sit beside you in silence. Who would stay when there's nothing to gain? I can't go back, but you still can. If this story made you think, stay here with me. There's more I need to say before time says it for me.